My stepmother said they needed just 2 weeks for Christmas. I overheard her on the phone planning to squat in my studio for 6 months and get added to my lease. I, 26F, need an outside perspective because my entire extended family is currently divided into camps, and I'm genuinely starting to question whether I handled this situation correctly. My best friend Sarah says I did nothing wrong, my therapist says I set healthy boundaries, but the guilt is eating me alive, especially given the timing of everything that went down. Let me start from the beginning, because context is everything in this situation. I'm a graphic designer who graduated from college 4 years ago with roughly $35,000 in student loans and a dream of owning my own place before I turned 30. I know that might sound unrealistic in today's economy, but I've always been someone who sets seemingly impossible goals and then works obsessively to achieve them. My mother raised me alone after my parents divorced when I was 12, and she taught me that nobody was going to hand me anything in life. If I wanted something, I had to earn it myself. For the past 5 years, I've lived like a monk. I shared a cramped 3-bedroom apartment with 3 other people in a less-than-ideal neighborhood because the rent was cheap. My room was basically a glorified closet, just big enough for a twin bed and a small desk where I did freelance work every night after my regular 9-to-5 job. I meal prepped every Sunday, ate the same rotating menu of chicken, rice, and vegetables for literally years. I didn't go out with friends, didn't date, didn't take vacations. Every spare dollar went into my savings account, which I nicknamed Freedom Fund in my banking app. My coworkers thought I was crazy. They'd go out for drinks after work, and I'd head home to work on freelance projects. They'd talk about their weekend trips and new purchases, and I'd quietly eat my Tupperware lunch while calculating how many more logo designs I needed to complete to make my monthly savings goal. I missed friendships, missed experiences, missed out on my early 20s in many ways. But I had a vision, and that vision was my own space where nobody could tell me what to do or how to live. Last March, after 5 years of this grinding lifestyle, I finally had enough for a down payment. I found a 500-square-foot studio apartment in a converted warehouse building in the Arts District. It's not large by any means, but it has 12-foot ceilings, original exposed brick walls, massive industrial windows that flood the space with natural light, and it's a 10-minute walk from my office. The day I signed the papers, I literally cried in the bathroom at the title company. This apartment represented everything I'd worked for: independence, security, and proof that I could achieve my goals without anyone's help. I spent the next few months making it perfect. I bought a Murphy bed that folds into the wall to maximize space during the day. Everything has multiple purposes. My coffee table lifts up to become a dining table, my ottoman opens for storage, my desk folds against the wall when I'm not working. I painted one accent wall a deep forest green, hung floating shelves for my plants, and created a gallery wall of black and white photographs I'd taken over the years. It's minimalist, organized, and exactly what I always dreamed of. Every item in that space was chosen deliberately, placed with intention. Now, let me explain the family dynamics that led to this disaster. When my parents divorced, it was messy. My father, Robert, had been having an affair with Karen, who worked at his company. Karen was divorced herself with a son, Tyler, who was 4 years younger than me. My dad married Karen when I was 16, and honestly, I never really accepted her as family. Not because she was the other woman. I'd actually forgiven that by the time I went to college. But because she always made it clear that Tyler was her priority and I was just an inconvenient reminder of my dad's previous life. Tyler was the golden boy who could do no wrong. Star quarterback in high school, popular, charming when he wanted to be. He got a partial athletic scholarship to a good state school, and Karen never stopped talking about how successful he was going to be. Meanwhile, my achievements, graduating summa cum laude, landing a job at a respected design firm, paying off my student loans early, were always met with lukewarm congratulations and immediate pivot back to Tyler's latest accomplishment. The dynamic shifted dramatically last September when Tyler got kicked out of college. According to the family grapevine, my cousin Emma loves to gossip, he'd been partying instead of going to classes, failed multiple courses, lost his scholarship, and got caught with drugs in his dorm room. The drug charge was apparently minor enough to avoid legal consequences, but it was enough for the university to expel him. Karen went into full damage control mode, telling everyone he was taking a break to find himself, and that college wasn't for everyone. In October, Karen lost her job as a retail manager when the chain store she worked for closed multiple locations. She'd been there for 8 years and thought she was safe, but corporate decided otherwise. She got 2 weeks of severance for each year of service, which sounds like a lot, but apparently, she and Tyler had been living beyond their means for a while, expecting his future NFL career, completely delusional, to solve all their financial problems. They moved in with Karen's mother in November, but that arrangement lasted exactly 3 weeks before Karen's mother kicked them out. I heard from Emma that Tyler had been stealing from his grandmother's purse and Karen had defended him, causing a massive fight. This brings us to December 15th, when I received a call from my father. We have what I generously call a distant relationship. We exchange pleasantries at family gatherings. He remembers to text me on my birthday about 60% of the time, and that's about it. So when his name appeared on my phone screen at 8 p.m. on a Thursday, I knew something was up. He started with small talk, which was red flag number 1. He asked about my job, complimented my recent Instagram posts of my apartment, red flag number 2, he never uses Instagram, and then mentioned how proud he was that I'd achieved my goal of homeownership. I'm not stupid. I knew where this was heading before he even got to the point. Sure enough, after 5 minutes of unprecedented interest in my life, he dropped the bomb. Karen and Tyler needed somewhere to stay, temporarily, during the holidays. It would just be for 2 weeks, he assured me. They have an apartment viewing scheduled for December 28th, and they both have jobs starting right after New Year's. It's just unfortunate timing with the holidays, and hotels are so expensive this time of year. I immediately said no. I explained that my apartment is a studio. 1 room, no doors except for the bathroom, no privacy whatsoever. Where would everyone sleep? How would I work from home with 2 other people in such a small space? My dad had apparently anticipated these objections because he had answers ready. They'd bring air mattresses, Tyler would sleep in the kitchen area, they'd be out during the day job hunting and apartment viewing, they understood it would be tight but family makes sacrifices for each other. Then came the emotional manipulation. I've never asked you for anything, he said, which was patently false. He'd asked me to contribute to Tyler's college fund when I was working 2 jobs. He'd asked me to give up my spring break to help Karen move into her new house. He'd asked me to design marketing materials for his company for free because it would be good for my portfolio. But I didn't bring any of that up because I knew it would just lead to an argument. It's Christmas, sweetheart, he continued. I know you and Karen haven't always seen eye to eye, but Tyler is going through a really tough time. He looks up to you, you know. You're successful, independent, everything he wants to be. Maybe spending time with you would be good for him, help him get back on track. That was a lie, and we both knew it. Tyler had never shown the slightest interest in my life or career. But it was December, I was feeling the holiday spirit, and maybe a small part of me wanted to prove that I was the bigger person. So against every instinct screaming at me to maintain my boundaries, I agreed, with conditions. The conditions were non-negotiable, 2 weeks maximum, out by January 2nd. No guests in my apartment. No smoking, Tyler had picked up the habit in college. Respect my work-from-home schedule. Keep the space clean. No rearranging my furniture or belongings. My father agreed immediately to everything, which should have been my 3rd red flag. People who intend to respect boundaries usually at least discuss them. They don't just immediately agree to everything. They arrived on December 18th with enough belongings for a permanent relocation, not a 2-week stay. Tyler had 3 massive suitcases, 2 gaming systems, PlayStation and Xbox, a full desktop gaming computer with 2 monitors, a gaming chair, a mini fridge, and several boxes of what looked like collectibles. Karen brought multiple boxes of kitchen supplies, claiming she didn't want to impose by using my things, several suitcases of clothes, a jewelry box, important documents in a filing box, and even her own television because she preferred her specific model for her shows. The immediate takeover of my space was breathtaking in its audacity. Without asking, Tyler set up his entire gaming station in my living area, pushing my carefully arranged reading nook into the corner. Karen reorganized my kitchen within an hour of arriving, moving my items to make room for her specialized gadgets, a bread maker, an air fryer, an instant pot, a NutriBullet, and various other appliances that wouldn't even fit on my counters. They acted like I was the intruder in my own home, giving me looks of annoyance when I tried to use my own bathroom or kitchen. That first night set the tone for everything that followed. Tyler stayed up until 4 a.m. playing online games, yelling into his headset at teammates. When I asked him to keep it down at 1 a.m., he looked at me like I was insane. It's winter break, he said. Normal people don't have bedtimes during winter break. When I explained that I had to work the next day, he rolled his eyes and said, "Must be nice to have a job that lets you work from home. Some of us have to actually struggle." The irony of that statement, coming from someone who had blown a college scholarship to party and was now living rent-free in my apartment that I'd worked 80-hour weeks to afford, was not lost on me. But I bit my tongue, figuring I could endure 2 weeks of this for the sake of family harmony. Update 1, December 20th. By the 3rd day, I realized I'd made a catastrophic error in judgment. Working from home with Karen and Tyler in my studio apartment was like trying to perform surgery in the middle of a circus. My work-from-home days, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, were sacred to me. That's when I did my most creative work, had important client calls, and could focus without office distractions. But with my new roommates, concentration was impossible. That Wednesday, I had a crucial presentation scheduled with a potential major client, a boutique hotel chain that wanted a complete rebrand. I'd been preparing for weeks, and this could mean a significant bonus and possible promotion if I landed the account. I'd told Karen and Tyler about this the night before, stressing how important it was that I have quiet from 10 to 11 a.m. At 10:05, just as I was beginning my presentation, Tyler decided to make himself breakfast. Not a quiet breakfast. No, he was blending a protein shake, frying bacon, and playing music from his phone at full volume. When I frantically muted myself and gestured for him to stop, he mouthed, "Sorry," but continued making noise, just slightly quieter. I could see my potential clients on screen looking confused as background noise leaked through despite my mute button. After the call, which went poorly, I confronted Tyler. His response: "You should have gone to the office if it was so important. It's not my fault your company is too cheap to give you proper workspace." Karen backed him up, adding, "You young people want to work from home but then complain when home isn't perfect. In my day, we went to offices like real professionals." This from a woman who had just lost her job and was currently living in my apartment rent-free. But the workspace invasion was just the beginning. They'd completely rearranged my furniture while I was at the office on Tuesday. My carefully curated space was destroyed. My work desk, which had been positioned to take advantage of natural light from the windows, was now shoved into the darkest corner of the apartment, right next to the bathroom. My plants, which needed that window light, were moved to the floor, because Tyler's gaming setup needs to be by the window to avoid screen glare. My gallery wall of photographs, pieces I'd spent years collecting and arranging, had been taken down because Karen found them depressing and pretentious. She'd replaced them with a wooden sign that said, "Live, Laugh, Love," that she'd apparently brought with her. My minimalist aesthetic was replaced with their clutter. Tyler's gaming posters were taped to my exposed brick wall, ruining the rustic charm I loved. Karen's collection of ceramic angels was displayed on my floating shelves, my books stacked on the floor. When I demanded they put everything back, the waterworks started. Karen began sobbing, saying I was heartless and didn't understand what they were going through. She claimed they were just trying to feel at home during a difficult time, and that I was being selfish with my space. Tyler was less diplomatic, calling me a uptight bitch, and saying it was no wonder I lived alone because nobody could stand to be around someone so controlling. My father called within an hour. Karen had obviously immediately reported my cruelty to him. He berated me for 20 minutes about family values, about sharing, about not being materialistic. "It's just furniture," he said. "Is your feng shui really more important than your family's comfort?" When I tried to explain that they'd taken over my entire apartment, he cut me off. "You have no idea what Tyler's going through. Depression is serious, and if rearranging some furniture helps him feel better, why can't you just be supportive?" Update 2, December 24th, Christmas Eve. The situation reached a breaking point on Christmas Eve. I'd been staying late at the office every day, not because I had extra work, but because I couldn't stand being in my own apartment. I was arriving home after 9 p.m. most nights, eating dinner at my desk, and essentially living like a refugee from my own life. My coworkers noticed something was wrong, but I was too embarrassed to admit I'd been manipulated into hosting my entitled stepfamily. On December 23rd, I decided to come home earlier, thinking maybe I could have a calm conversation about their move-out plan for January 2nd. What I walked into at 8 p.m. made my blood run cold. There were 6 strangers in my apartment. Tyler had invited friends over for what he called a small holiday pregame. There were beer cans and bottles everywhere. Someone had definitely been smoking inside, cigarettes and marijuana, and they were using my good dishes, the ones my grandmother had given me that I kept in a high cabinet for special occasions. One of Tyler's friends was sitting on my kitchen counter, another was going through my vinyl record collection, and a couple was making out on my Murphy bed, which they'd pulled down without asking. The final straw? Someone had spilled red wine on my white wool rug, a piece I'd saved for 6 months to buy, and that tied the whole room together. I completely lost it. I've never been someone who yells, but I screamed at everyone to get out. Tyler's friends looked shocked and scrambled to leave, muttering apologies and, "We didn't know," as they filed out. Tyler, however, was furious. He got in my face, calling me every name in the book. "You're a stuck-up, frigid bitch," he spat. "No wonder my dad doesn't love you. You're incapable of human emotion. This is why you'll die alone in this pretentious shoebox." Karen tried to gaslight me, claiming I'd never said anything about no guests. I had the text messages stating this rule, and that I was ruining Christmas with my control issues. She actually said, "This is why your father and I didn't want to involve you in family gatherings. You make everything about you and your rules." That night, I couldn't sleep. Partially from anger, partially from the noise of Tyler gaming until 5 a.m., but mostly from what I overheard around 2 a.m. Karen was on the phone with my father, and because my studio has zero sound privacy, I heard every word. "She'll adjust, Robert. Once we're settled in for a few months, she won't have a choice. Your daughter needs to learn about family obligation. We can probably get her to add Tyler to the lease eventually. Tell her it'll help his credit or something. She makes enough money to cover the rent herself, so it's not like we'd be costing her anything extra. And that promotion she's always talking about? Once she gets it, we might even be able to get her to move to a bigger place with actual bedrooms. Tyler deserves his own room, and I'm too old to be sleeping in a living room forever." Forever. Months. Lease addition. Every word confirmed my worst suspicions. Update 3. Christmas Day execution. I didn't sleep after hearing that conversation. Instead, I did research. I looked up tenant laws in my state, discovering that since they'd been there less than 30 days, had no lease, paid no rent, and were explicitly told their stay was temporary, they had no tenant rights. They were guests, and I could revoke their welcome at any time. I also found the business card of a 24-hour emergency locksmith that I'd kept from when I first moved in. Christmas morning required Oscar-worthy acting on my part. I woke up, smiled, made coffee for everyone, and gave them the presents I'd bought before this nightmare began: a nice sweater for Karen, a video game for Tyler. We had breakfast together, and I apologized for overreacting the night before. I said the stress of year-end projects at work was getting to me, and I promised to be more flexible. The relief on their faces was palpable. Karen actually hugged me and whispered, "I knew you'd come around." Family always does. Around 2 p.m., they announced they were going out for Christmas dinner at a restaurant because my kitchen wasn't equipped for proper holiday cooking, despite having literally everything needed to cook a full meal. They'd made reservations at an upscale place downtown, clearly expecting to be gone for several hours. Perfect. The moment their car left the parking garage, I called the locksmith. $400 for emergency holiday service to change my locks immediately. While he worked, I began packing their belongings with methodical precision. I wasn't vengeful or destructive. I actually took more care with their things than they'd taken with mine. Clothes were folded properly. Electronics were wrapped in bubble wrap I'd rushed to buy from a CVS that was miraculously open. I even separated clean and dirty laundry, using my own garbage bags to keep things organized. I lined everything up neatly in the hallway outside my apartment. 3 suitcases, 2 gaming systems, the computer setup, the mini fridge, Karen's boxes of kitchen gadgets, her documents, their Christmas presents from that morning, everything. It took me 90 minutes to completely erase their presence from my apartment and restore it to its original state. My furniture went back where it belonged, my photographs returned to the walls, and that hideous live, laugh, love sign went into their pile of belongings. At 4:30 p.m., I sent a message to the family group chat that included my father, his siblings, my cousins, and my grandparents. "Merry Christmas, everyone. I need to share something with complete transparency. Karen and Tyler asked to stay with me for 2 weeks while apartment hunting. I've discovered this was a lie. They had no apartment viewing scheduled, no jobs lined up, and were planning to squat in my 500-square-foot studio indefinitely. I overheard them discussing staying for months and potentially trying to get added to my lease. They've also violated every boundary I set. They had multiple guests over for parties, rearranged my entire apartment, damaged my property, and have been extraordinarily disrespectful. As they obtained access to my home through false pretenses, I've packed their belongings safely and changed my locks. Their items are in my building's hallway, undamaged and organized. I wish them well in finding appropriate accommodations that they've honestly arranged. This decision is final and not up for discussion." Then I turned off my phone and spent the rest of Christmas watching movies and deep cleaning my apartment to remove any trace of their presence. Update 4. The Aftermath, December 26th to 28th. I turned my phone back on the morning of December 26th to absolute chaos. My phone showed 147 missed calls, over 200 text messages, and dozens of voicemails. The family response was swift and divided. Tyler's messages were threatening and vicious. He called me every name imaginable, threatened to sue me for illegal eviction, threatened to ruin my life on social media, and said he'd make sure everyone at my company knew what a heartless bitch I was. His final message was a long rant about how I destroyed his mental health recovery and that if he relapsed into drug use, it would be my fault. Karen left multiple sobbing voicemails, each more dramatic than the last. She claimed I'd made them homeless on Christmas, that I'd ruined Tyler's chance at recovery, that I was a soulless monster who didn't understand family values. She also threatened legal action, claiming they'd established residency and I'd illegally evicted them. My father's message was brief but devastating: "You're no longer my daughter. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become." Joke's on him. My mother, who I called that evening, laughed for 10 solid minutes when I told her the story and said, "Good for you, baby." I always knew Karen was trash. The extended family reactions were mixed and revealing. My grandmother, father's mother, said I was no longer welcome at any family gatherings and that she was disgusted by my selfishness. Several aunts and uncles called me heartless, cruel, and not real family material. Cousins I'd grown up with said I'd gone too far, that it was Christmas, that family forgives and forgets. But then the private messages started coming in. Uncle Mike, my father's younger brother, texted me, "Don't let anyone make you feel guilty. Karen and Tyler pulled this same stunt with me 3 years ago. Just a week turned into 4 months of hell. Had to formally evict them, which cost me thousands in legal fees. When I tried to warn Robert, he accused me of being jealous of his perfect family. You did the right thing. Stay strong." My cousin Jennifer called me privately. Thank God someone finally stood up to them. They stayed with my parents for 2 months last year. Tyler stole my mom's jewelry and Karen gaslit her into thinking she'd misplaced it. We found the pawn shop receipts in Tyler's room after they left. My father's sister, Aunt Linda, sent a long email detailing how Karen had borrowed $5,000 from her for Tyler's college expenses, promising to pay it back when Tyler went pro. When Linda asked for repayment after Tyler got expelled, Karen claimed it was a gift and threatened to tell the family Linda was harassing them during their time of crisis. 6 different family members reached out with similar stories. Karen and Tyler had been making the rounds for years, exploiting family goodwill, staying temporarily until they wore out their welcome or were forced to leave. Everyone had been too embarrassed or too concerned about family harmony to speak up publicly. The pattern was always the same: a sob story, a request for short-term help, gradual boundary violations, and then either a dramatic exit when confronted or a lengthy battle to remove them. By December 27th, I learned that Karen and Tyler had spent Christmas night in a hotel my father paid for, so much for being homeless, and were now staying with my grandmother. According to my cousin Emma, who lived nearby, my grandmother was already regretting her decision. Tyler had set up his gaming station in her living room and was gaming loudly until the early morning hours. Karen had completely reorganized my grandmother's kitchen and was complaining about the substandard appliances and lack of space. Final resolution and reflection. As I write this on December 28th, I'm sitting in my restored apartment, looking at my photographs back on the wall, my furniture where it belongs, my plants back in a window soaking up winter sunlight. The silence is beautiful. I can work without interruption, sleep without Tyler's gaming rage, and exist in my space without feeling like an intruder. But the guilt hasn't completely faded. Yes, they lied to me. Yes, they tried to take advantage of my hard work and generosity. Yes, they had done this to multiple family members before. But I keep replaying Karen's tears in the hallway, surrounded by boxes on Christmas Day. I keep thinking about Tyler, clearly struggling with his life falling apart, even if he's handling it terribly. I wonder if I could have been more compassionate, more patient, more understanding. My therapist, during an emergency session on December 27th, helped me reframe the situation. "You're not responsible for problems you didn't create," she said. "They chose to lie to you. They chose to violate your boundaries. They chose to plan a long-term deception. Every consequence they're facing is a direct result of their choices, not your response to those choices." She also pointed out something I hadn't considered: they didn't target your father, who has a house with multiple bedrooms. They didn't target your grandparents initially. They targeted you, a young woman living alone who they thought they could manipulate and overwhelm. That's predatory behavior, not family in crisis. The family remains divided. Half of them still think I'm Satan incarnate for making family homeless on Christmas. The other half has privately expressed support but won't say anything publicly because it would cause drama. I've been uninvited for my father's side family gatherings, which honestly feels more like a relief than a punishment. My mother's side of the family has embraced me fully, with my maternal grandmother calling me a badass and saying she's proud of me for standing up for myself. I've also taken practical steps to protect myself. I've documented everything, saved all text messages, recorded some conversations, legal in my state, kept photos of the damage to my property, and consulted with a lawyer friend who confirmed that I acted legally. If Karen and Tyler try to sue, I'm prepared. But here's what I've really learned from this experience. Sometimes being the villain in someone else's story is the price of being the hero in your own. My studio apartment represents years of sacrifice, discipline, and hard work. It's not just property. It's proof that I can set goals and achieve them, that I can create the life I want through my own efforts. Allowing Karen and Tyler to steal that from me through manipulation and lies would have been a betrayal of everything I've worked for. So am I the asshole for changing the locks while they were at Christmas dinner? Maybe. But I'm an asshole with boundaries, self-respect, and a peaceful home that remains mine. And honestly, that's a trade I'm willing to make. The apartment viewing they were supposedly having on December 28th never existed. The jobs starting in January were fabrications. The 2-week stay was always intended to be indefinite. They chose to build their plan on lies, and lies have a way of crumbling at the worst possible moment. The fact that their moment happened to be Christmas? Well, maybe they should have considered that before deciding to try to steal someone's home through deception. I'm not sorry for protecting what I've earned. I'm not sorry for refusing to enable their parasitic lifestyle. I'm not sorry for choosing my own well-being over their convenience. If that makes me the asshole, then I'll wear that title with pride. So, Reddit, what's your verdict? AITA for changing the locks on my studio apartment on Christmas Day after discovering my stepmother and stepbrother were planning to squat there indefinitely under the pretense of a 2-week holiday stay?